We are live and direct another Wednesday evening at the JerzWay channel talking about API. Super excited though. Have one of my boys, my favorite people on Twitter, and that's Huntman10. Hunter was actually one of the first, I think the first guest I had when I was doing the DFS school thing. Just a young kid out there. So Hunter, how are you? And thanks for joining us tonight.
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. I think this is our second time talking. The first time was almost a year ago. I was kind of reflecting a little bit. I think
Yeah.
I think at the time, I think I had about 40 followers, and I was coming off of a couple of rough weeks of DFS. And you get to that point where you're putting out content, and content for me back then. But I was just, man, I was thinking, man, do I want to keep doing this? I mean, I'm putting a lot of
Right.
time into it, of course, but then you had me on, and I think I had a pretty solid week after that, and I've stuck with it ever since. So I appreciate that a lot, and I was really looking forward to jumping back on with you.
Yeah, and I appreciate you. You put out such great information and just have a great mind for this. And you're kind of how you got in it during COVID. Your story back then was so cool. And now you have your great website. Again, great information on there, and you do your work with DSM Media, which those are such great dudes.
Yeah,
Um,
love those guys.
and so, yeah, they're great. Well, tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about API. Maybe just whatever you want to talk about, but course or narratives or just the vibe heading into tomorrow.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, where should we start? I guess we could start with Bay Hill. It's another tough golf course, similar to what we saw last week, where there's going to be a lot of water, of course. It's a little bit longer than last week, I believe. So we should see some longer hitters. I guess one of the narratives I want to ask you about right away is: are you looking into the narrative of distance players play well here? Or are you trying to fade that? Are you doing anything specific with that within your lineups? We've seen a lot of ball strikers win over the last really last 5 years, especially with Bryson last year. It's not a requirement, of course. Putting's always gonna help you win in the end, of course. But what are
Right.
you doing with the distance narrative?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. And so one thing I do, if yeah, distance matters. A proximity with the long irons really matter. But then there's like balances that go with other statistics. So if like let's just say you're not a longer hitter, but you're great around the green. Well, the birdies are going to be few and far between here. I think the winning score will be 10, 11, 12 under, similar to last week.
Yeah.
And so scrambling is going to be very very important. And so yeah, I don't kind of not discredit or X out guys that don't hit it very far, but if that's a weakness of theirs, they better be great with the long irons, or they better be great around the green, kind of great putting. But gosh, like if you can drive it excellent here, like when Rory's on, he's one of the best drivers of the ball like ever maybe we've seen. And so you don't need an excellent approach game here if you're driving the ball, because some golfers, if you take some of these lines, we see it on Bryson, that iconic, it's now a meme and NFT now on that hole, just cut the corner. So I'm kind of blabbering on. So point being, it kind of, yeah, it's a lean, but if there's counter strengths with shorter hitters, that kind of has me playing here. One of which is like Fitzpatrick, not a longer hitter, but
Yeah.
it's played well here. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think you're right. You've got to be really great at least one of those categories, whether it's scrambling and around the green, or you got to be a really solid ball striker. Obviously, if you can
Hmm.
combine those two, you're going to be successful here. But yeah, I think you got to be great in one of those this week. If you lack in all four categories, all four of the main ones, you're going to struggle this week. So, and that happens
Yeah.
most often. So I'm looking forward to it, though. I like these kind of events where there's water and you see a wide range of scores, where there's a lot of
Yeah.
scores close to plus 10. And then there's also scores that get close to 10 under par too. So I look forward to these. People, are calling it pretty close to a major, just with
Yeah.
the conditions this weekend. Do you agree with that, or do you consider that at all when making lineups, I guess, as well?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you the similar thing. So that we've all kind of heard and seen pictures of how crazy the rough I think is going to
Yeah.
be this week, and so I'll see it when it happens. So we'll see tomorrow if that's actually the case. But but yeah, I'm kind of considering it's, you got to be a major, no pun intended, but a major like player to play well here. I would say so. And I think Andy Lack pointed it out really well that there's a new superintendent. Is that right? If I'm familiar, but anyway, kind of
Yeah, 3
that's
years
kind
ago,
of
I think.
taking over. Yeah, Bay Hill, and that's going to change some things. And so maybe it is playing more U.S. Open like. We'll see. But are you buying into that that narrative, and also with the rough and maybe how more difficult it'll play?
I guess I considered it, but I didn't really put it too much into my builds. I still have a lot. I think my problem last week is I went with more experienced players thinking, I was really looking for guys making the cut first and foremost,
Hmm.
maybe stay at even par for those cheaper guys. But a lot of those old guys burned me pretty bad with
Yeah.
Sink and Swafford. And a lot of the, rookies, I guess, ended up showing out pretty well, like Svensson and Lee Hodges as well. And I just didn't really expect that too much. So I had to consider that a little bit. I don't know, I guess it might be a little tougher conditions, like you said, with the rough um, and the windy conditions as well. I don't know. I didn't really consider it too much when you ask that. So
Yeah, and I don't think we need to. I do. I just have a theory, and obviously it's just subjective. It's my own opinion, but I really didn't weigh course history last week much at all because if you have two bad swings on one particular or a few holes, or yeah, maybe just two bad swings around, then you possibly get double bogey or worse on depending on the hole, and that knocks you out of
yeah,
the cut. And so, yeah, just two bad swings. I think doesn't or shouldn't make or break a tournament, but yeah, wrong place, wrong time, like where the Suns a lot of last week. I just thought that variance came in. This, I think I saw or read or heard that like Data Golf has this as one of the top 5 most predictive courses. And so definitely maybe course history would lean a little more important maybe this week. What do you think?
yeah. I definitely considered course history quite a bit. I think the stat from Data Golf it is that it was fourth most important with all
Or
courses. So I definitely consider it a lot. I'll probably bring it up in a few points when we're talking about some of these guys. I definitely considered it more so than just an experience perspective. Then again, I still like guys like Cam Young this week a lot, and we have a
yeah.
few guys I think we'll agree on quite a bit in the 6K range that haven't played this course before either. So I'm weighing it quite a bit for maybe the upper range guys, like those 9K, 8K range guys, but I'm still taking chances on some rookies down in the lower salary range.
Yeah, me too. I'm doing kind of a big stars and scrubs approach. There's a few I counteracted with a few lineups that go kind of more balanced, but we have I think only 120 players in the field, so
Yeah.
a tad smaller field, maybe a little bit more likely to make the cut. So then more stars and scrubs. But I do want to ask you because I'm always interested in what you're doing. What type of contest are you entering this week, and how many lineups do you currently have?
So I'm a 20 max guy, which I think is kind of different than what a lot of people on Twitter do. I see a lot of people do single entry. I see a lot of people do 150 max, and I've been kind of toying with the idea of switching that up a little bit. I started with single entry. Maybe eventually I'll get to 150. I just enjoy the process of building lineups and
Yeah.
building lineups for like 20 different single entry um, contests doesn't make any sense. And I don't want to scroll that much on my phone. So I just switched to
Right.
20 entry maxes. I've kind of toyed with my strategy a lot with that too. I've started to kind of treat it like a single entry where I, find the one lineup that I like the most and then just make small pivots with guys that I like, mainly off of ownership, I guess. And that's
Hmm.
how I treat the 20 maxes. So sometimes like I could have maybe 2 lineups cash and it is terrible, but my goal
Yeah.
each week is to have at least, 15, maybe even more than that cash. And if you have that many in the green, you have a really good chance on Sunday. So that's my
Yeah.
strategy. I know you do 150, right?
I am, or typically, but I have done less of that, and I'm not doing that this week. Partially because of no, we had Noto on the approach, and he
Yeah.
was talking about how he changes it up sometimes week to week depending on how he feels. So I actually built my role on single entry or 3 entry max. So I'm really kind of shrinking down and entering some more larger field tournaments this week, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Actually, for whatever reason, DraftKings posted a couple really nice single entry with some great payout structure on it. So if you're not doing single entry, might be a good week to do that. But I'm really fascinated by what you just said with how you might, when you're building 20 lineups, if I heard you right, you might have one that you really love, and then you use that one to make other lineups that are just very similar, like 1, 2, or 3 golfers that are different.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. And that's like I said, I started with single entry, and I just wanted to. I always felt like I was toying with my lineup so much that I
Yeah.
was just like, man, I should just make more lineups. So
Hmm.
I start with I still play one, and like the one lineup I love the most. I throw that into a single entry contest still every week, and then off of that, I switch that up 20 different times in a 20 entry max, usually the $1 contest, and just see where it goes. So it's been up and down so far this season. Like I said, when you are in the green, it does really well because
Yeah.
I've learned it from you, honestly. Like when I first talked to you on your Monday Night School, my player pool was way too big for 20 entry maxes. And you just kind of helped me bite the bullet a little bit more and
Mhm.
just bet on guys a little bit rather than spreading myself out a little bit too thin. So I got to credit you for that, and that's helped me out a lot too. So I also got to credit you guys at the approach too. I mean, that show with Noto the other night was incredible. You guys, I loved what you talked about just from a strategy perspective. I don't think that gets talked about enough on DFS
Mhm.
shows. It's always, who do you like in the 10K range all the way down to sixes, and then we'll see you next week. So that's why I love,
Yeah.
listening to you and Drew every week because you always talk about strategy type stuff, and then you get into your guys, of course. So
Well, you're a gentleman for saying that. I really appreciate that, yeah, I just think that is such. I haven't heard that strategy before of how you create, your 20, your pick one lineup, and then you kind of make differences there. Because yeah, and unfortunately, like you said, some weeks when our tight core, our player pool, bounces, yeah, then it sucks because then every lineup is like not in the money, not even close.
yeah,
But that's DFS. But when your player pool that is really tight does work out, it gives you likely a huge opportunity to finish in the 1% because you have multiple variations of a strong core, and that's kind of what you're wanting. And that's a really interesting way to kind of go about it. I haven't heard that strategy yet, but that makes so much sense. And it makes me think of, if you remember, the individual who won the Millie Maker last year at the Open.
yeah,
He finished like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you get it from doing something like that.
yeah. I think he had 5 golfers and just switched one. And those 5 all, ended up in the top
Hmm.
10 or 15 or something like that. And yeah, he was rich after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know how
Yeah.
I started with it. I guess, like I said, just started with single entry, and just really trying to tweak the process of where do I make those changes? Because if I have too
Hmm.
many changes in that 7K range, you'll, go back to it on Sunday wishing, man, I really wish I would have loaded up on 1 or 2 of these. And it's always easier said in hindsight, I guess. But yeah, that's my strategy that I've been playing around with. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's so, I love that. And how's, just real quick, how's your DFS early 2020 going? Any big scores? Any sweats?
Pretty solid in the classic. I've been profiting in that so far. I've been kind of getting wrecked in showdown, which has been
Mhm.
kind of taking away my profit a little bit. So so far it's pretty even. I've been, like I said, trying to really work on my strategy a little bit, and um, uh, last week was pretty tough too, so that didn't help
Yeah.
out. But how about you? How have you been doing?
Yeah, a little opposite, you're doing all right, having some nice sweats and showdowns. Still haven't gotten the win there, but I've only had two really main sweats. At the Farmers, I had a lot of lineups, making a lot of money before Luke List made his run on Sunday. I had very little
Yeah.
List, so that hurt. Um,
Yep.
and then at the Amex, I had some good lines going into there. But yeah, showdown's been working. Hopefully that kind of continues. But let's go to
Yep.
the board here. Yeah, top of it, really excited. John Rahm, everybody. was talking that it was going to be kind of a sexy pick, that everyone's not playing him, and he turns out to be one of the highest owned guys. So let's start at John Rahm and maybe going down all the way to the 9K range from Scott. So Scott the Rahm, who's a couple guys that you like, or that's maybe you're really leaning on heavily this week?
Yeah, looking at the top of the board, I guess we got to talk about Rahm. Of course, we have to. I
Yeah.
feel like everyone really has Rahm fatigue right now. Like we have way too high of expectations almost. Maybe that's because the odds
Yeah.
are completely unbettable each and every week.
Yeah.
But and he hasn't been performing terribly. I mean, I've been rostering him and I haven't been too happy with his results, I guess. I I don't know. I know you. I mean, he's going to be a great leverage play, I guess, this week. I'm just not really sure. His ball striking's been incredible. We just all know it's been his putting
Mhm.
these last few weeks. Um,
Yeah.
what are you doing with Rom? Are you going overweight? I know the ownership is looking pretty solid for the best player in the world. His salary's so high and it's not really fitting my build so much. I can't hate on the play, of course, but what are you doing with Rom?
Yeah, I'm severely going overweight with Rahm, and I just saw he just changed up his putter, and I think kind of is liking it. So whatever that means. So
Okay.
he's kind of been burning edges, and he just got a new putter. Maybe he gets a little bump there, but he's underachieved, but he's played better than his results have shown, I think.
Yeah.
Really being let down with the putter. But just you look at the last 24 rounds, and he almost ranks in the top 5 or 10 on like every key metric. And I know he hasn't played here before, but he just fits, I would imagine, so well here, especially if it plays like the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
I believe he's one of the better players out of the rough. So I'm going heavily on Rahm, but it sounds like you're fading him. Is that right?
For the most, I mean, yeah, I'm underweight on him, which isn't really a whole lot. So honestly, I'm really working in the 9K range. I'll kind of get to them here in a little bit. If I had to pick
Sure.
one, in the 10K, it's got to be Rory. Of course, I know his ownership is
Yeah.
ridiculous, but he's got to be the safest play this week, in my opinion. 5 top 10 finishes here in the last 5 years. He's also got like loaded with top 20s in his
Mhm.
just his season so far this year. So I'd say Rory's probably the safest play. But of course, I love Hovland too. I can't go without
Mhm.
mentioning him
Yeah.
either. So, yeah, I'm not really too big on Rom this week. I got to take a break from him. I've been playing way too much of him the last few weeks. It could obviously burn me. I know, like you said, with that ownership number, it's looking really nice. But I tweeted about it the other day too. I think we're talking that up a little bit. I think it's going to be
Mhm.
closer to 20. I could
I
be
agree.
totally wrong on that, but um, would you still play him knowing that he would be at 20, or would you play him at
Yeah.
like 22 still?
I'd play him at 22 and 25, probably the highest. Just that kind of confident, and I think Rory's
Yeah.
going to gather more ownership than projected. But you mentioned Rory, and I was just looking at his some of his data, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves with the putter. He goes on these runs where he's the best putter I've seen almost in strokes gained data. So in his
Yeah.
last four, he's gained 4.6, 0.9, but then 6 and 5.2 at the Genesis. When he won here, I think he gained 10 strokes on the green. No one talks about him being a great putter, but gosh, he's a great putter. So how could you not like him? Like you said, the course history. Hovland seems like a good fit. Uh, Hideki kind of too. Willie Z. But you mentioned you like a couple guys in the 9K range. So yeah, who are those golfers?
I do. So, I mean, we all know Zalatoris and Fitzpatrick are probably the two highest owned. I'm not going to waste people's time talking about
Yeah.
them here. I like Leishman quite a bit here this week. I don't see why there's any reason why Leishman can't finish higher than Fitzpatrick, and that's really kind of
Right.
what we're asking for with this leverage play. He's got 4 top 20s over his last 6 starts, 3 top 10s here, including a win in 2017. Like I said, I think he's just a great leverage play off of Fitzpatrick. I'll definitely be playing a lot of Leishman, and I like Hatton here too. I think the one question mark is we haven't seen him in the U.S. so far this 2022 season, but if that's the only question mark, I think that's a great, like you call it, a game theory play. He
Mm-hmm.
won in 2020, fourth in 2017. I don't think he's ever missed a cut here either. So I like Hatton quite a bit. So far, my strategy is loading up on a lot of these guys in this range. I still like Zalatoris and Fitzpatrick. I'll probably sprinkle them in a little bit, but I'm just loving this range quite a bit. I think it's mainly because of the salary saving it's getting me. I can
Mm-hmm.
get two of them for the price of, or three of them for the price of two, 10K guys. But that's just kind of where I'm sitting so far. Who do you like in this range?
Well, yeah, a lot of the names that you just mentioned, there's some I'm a little worried about I think there's going to be a PM AM tee
Yeah,
time advantage, not a big one, maybe a slight one. So it's helping me cut people off. And so one of which is Keith Mitchell. Obviously looks like a great play, great court history, great performance at comp courses, played decent recently, but with his ownership, I'm trying to find him. Well, anyway, he's in 800. I don't know why I'm bringing him up, but point being, uh, a lot of these guys I'm having to kind of make a stand because they're all pretty flat ownership wise. Even if you go above and start with Hovland all the way down to Scott, they're all
yeah,
pretty owned with Willie Z being the highly owned, and so then just the fact that Willie Z is the highest owned, I'm kind of chopping my ownership percentages on him and actually moving it more to your Hatton call. I really like that at 10%. He's kind of the forgotten man in this group. And I wrote him up, I think, on the Rotoballer, like Leishman versus Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick is not that more likely to outperform Leishman than what the ownership projects. So I agree. No Scott. Billy Horschel at 10% is interesting to me. But now we're getting in the 8K range. And I do
yep,
just want to hype up one guy before I let you go. Is that just Sam Burns? Wrote him up in the Game Theory kind of article. Comes to Florida where he's won at Copperhead, returns to a Bermuda putting surface that, he excels on. But then we also have this, which is why he's only 9% owned right now. His current form is not great, but I'm willing to believe it's an outlier, a small outlier, and he'll get some positive regression because if you zoom out and look at his whole career, he's one of the better ball strikers on tour. And so
yeah.
I think he's just performed bad. He'll get back to the norm of how he plays, but at 9%, that's a big steal, I think. And then getting into the 8K range, which is also interesting. What are you or who are you liking here?
Yeah, sometimes I ask myself, what would Rob G do when building lineups? And I think Sam Burns is the Rob G play this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9% ownership. Like you said, his current form isn't really the greatest. He won back in the fall at Sanderson Farms, I think, which was another
Mm-hmm.
longer course, I believe, on Bermuda greens as well. So um, I don't know if we get the Sam Burns of the fall. This is going to be one of the greatest leverage plays, and his
Yeah.
price is perfect. I mean, he's not up in the upper nines, which we've been seeing recently. So I think everyone's kind of cooled off on Burns. Like you said, this is definitely the course fit for him. I'm a little nervous about his course form. Current form. I've been getting burned by just picking guys who I think are ready to pop and get back to
Yeah.
their old self. So I've been, going back and forth in my head on that this
Sure.
week. So Sam Burns is that perfect question.
Yeah. Yeah. And, could he continue to play bad? Sure. But that massive leverage is hard to pass up.
Yep.
Everybody knows Paul Casey's a good play, but yeah, the guy I wanted to talk about, Keith Mitchell, that for whatever reason I just thought he was in the 9K, but obviously 8,100. Keith Mitchell at 18% owned. When you have Sergio at 7% owned, one doesn't make that much sense because Keith Mitchell is not a consistent golfer throughout his career like a Paul Casey, a Kokrak, a Mitchell, and a Tringali. Even Fleetwood, but yet Mitchell is garnering the harness ownership. And could he outperform everybody in that range? Yeah. But let's just say that he does it 4 out of 10 times if they simulated this golf tournament 10 times. Well,
Yeah.
it just doesn't I don't see the worth in taking Mitchell with that much ownership when all these big names are around him and lesser ownership. He's likely a better bet than he is DFS play. But I just wanted to share that about Mitchell. Who are you playing further down the 8K range, or maybe who are you fading?
I agree with you on that, and I think betting those like chalky guys like Zalatoris and Mitchell is a great move
Mhm.
every single week. I wish I would do that more often, so then you just feel like you have some exposure,
Yeah,
I guess. But
right.
I agree with you on that. I think Sergio is the leverage play there. I like Paul Casey a little bit. I don't know why he's always in this like mid 8K range, like upper 7K
Hmm.
range, like every single tournament. He finished 10th here last year. He had a good finish at the Genesis. I think he was 15th. He's always popping in models too. I don't expect him to win ever, honestly, when I draft him. I just think the price is always pretty solid for what you're
Yeah.
getting with his stats and stuff. So I like Paul Casey. I'm gonna take a chance on Homa this week.
Hmm.
The main thing with him, is hitting those fairways. He's a bomber, of course. He's got back to back top 10 or top 15s, excuse me. In these tough fields, even though they were in California recently.
Right.
So that's kind of maybe my one question mark, because he loves California. Same with McNeely, of course. We'll get to them in the sevens, but I'm taking a chance on Homa. What do you think of Homa? And if you have any opinion on Casey, I'd love to hear it too.
Well, yeah, I love the 8% that Homa's carrying right now. And Casey he's a staple in my pool, and he's on the right side of the tee time stack, if there is
Okay.
going to be an advantage. So yeah, kind of big on that. Yeah, the 7K really gets interesting as we go down.
Yeah.
McNeely, I think, unfortunately, is a fade. He plays better on POA, not as good as Bermuda. Just putted exceptionally, I think, at Genesis, and didn't even all hit it that well on approach. Even though he's chalky, I just think this week or next week is where the Zaytnut really shines. I know he's played well in majors, but he's going to top 10 at this week or the Players, and I'm going to be on him heavy for both. He just feels like a type of course like this. So really high on Bez, even though he's going to be highly owned. Chris Kirk too.
Yep.
It's Cameron Young. I'm surprised he's not more popular. This feels
Yeah.
like a Cam Young course. Well, what do you think, and who are you liking in the 7K range?
I like Cam Young as well. He's just been playing so well. I didn't know if it was
Yeah.
gonna, stick with him going, traveling across the states and going again to a different putting surface and all that. But he's been playing great. It just shows me that he can play really well on any type of course. We'll kind of see as the year goes on, of course. But love
Hmm.
Cam Young quite a bit. Bezadenhout as well. He's just a guy who I love on tough courses. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I like Chris Kirk quite a bit.
Yeah.
Finished really well at the Honda. He had a top 15 at the Waste Management. I wrote about it last week. I think he started like +4 in the first two holes or something like that, or +3 at the Waste Management. And then he just
Hmm.
figured something out and just had a load of birdies in the next couple of rounds. So I don't know what it is, but he's figured something out. He's got a bunch of top 15 finishes at Bay Hill here as well. So, he's got that perfect recipe of, good course history as well as good current form too. So love Chris Kirk. Anytime we talk about ball striking, I feel like we got to bring up Corey Connors and Luke List. I think List is going to be the chalkier option. Connors kind of fits that Sam Burns theory of hasn't been playing great recently, but you
Hmm.
know, ball striker can't putt too well, so that's kind of a worry, I guess. Same thing with List. What are your thoughts on those two guys, Luke List and Corey Connors?
Yeah, they're similar players, and they just kill at ball striking. It just the putter with both of them. Connor is a little bit
Yeah,
better. I'm not. I'm not going the list. Going to Connors. I think 10% owned for the type of golfer he is at 7,600 is too owned. I'd rather go to Rose than anybody else. Maybe even
yeah,
Connors in that range as a kind of a play. One person I didn't mention, and he's my favorite play. I'm trying to see where he's owned. Yeah, I think my favorite play, definitely in Showdown tomorrow. He's locked in every single lineup I have in Showdown. But that's Sebastian Munoz,
yeah.
coming in great form, leads the field in proximity from 200 yards over the last 24 rounds, which is almost 30% of approach shots come from that range. So really high on Munoz. Decent history here. Yeah, right at 7K and only 8% at Munoz. He's a great first round leader play. I think he'll play well tomorrow. But you mentioned that there's a few guys in the 6K range that you think you and I will agree. And so I'm curious to know who that is.
Yeah. Well, I know for a fact we agree on Pendrith, just
Yeah.
from listening to you the other night. I enjoy Pendrith quite a bit. I just have a bias because I watched him last year. He played really well on the toughest course here in Omaha. Um, Played really well on some par threes, followed him for a little bit. He just really got up and down. There aren't a whole lot of weaknesses in his game, in my opinion. So I think he's going to be around here for a bit. He was 11th off the tee last week, 12th in approach. He has that great ball striking numbers. Couple of top 25s recently. He was fifth at the Bermuda Championship back in the fall, which is where I kind of had my eye on him. He had a
Mhm.
4-shot lead going into Sunday, way back in the
Yeah.
fall, and then definitely blew it to
Yeah.
Lucas Herbert, I think. So, but again, that had the same kind of setup. It had some tough par threes. It had windy conditions. I think Bermuda greens as well. So, I like Pendrith quite a bit. Great savings, and I like Svensson as well. Finished first in tee to green last week. He just could not putt, and same thing with Pendrith as well. So both of those guys, show that they can play in Florida. They can play on tough courses, and they leave you, with a lot of great salaries or savings as well. So love those two guys. What are your thoughts on both of them?
Oh yeah, I love Svensson too. You can't find a golfer in that range hitting the ball better than he is and has. I don't think he's missed a cut this year. Yeah, the putter just really let him down. And if we get a good
Yeah,
putting week and the ball striking stays consistent, that's going to be excellent at his price and ownership too. And then very high on Pendrith. We get the bonus that he's in the better tee time. He's long off the tee, kind of excels at um, yeah, off the tee with his distance, really good. But he's actually a good form. You mentioned the strokes. He finished like top 15, I think, in an approach last week, and his
yeah,
number that he got, I can't remember off the top of my head, but was the highest approach strokes gain number in that metric his whole short PGA Tour career. And so he hit the ball on approach last week, meaning the best he has data wise in his career. So that's encouraging. If he lines it up this week at 6,500, that's a big steal. I love Pendrith, and sure, it's a 6K guy. It may not work out, but I think if they play this tournament, 10 times, 7 times he'd make the cut, and maybe 5 times finish top 20. So
yeah,
high on him.
yeah. I like how you kind of look at it like that. These guys are never going to make the cut at every single tournament, even if they have great,
Right.
course history. It's golf. So I
Hmm.
like the way that you kind of look at the odds like that. So
Yeah,
any
and
other
it's
guys?
there's so. Oh yeah, I was going to say there's so much variable or randomness in golf. There's a lot of variables, and so that creates fluctuation, obviously, of performance and results. So yeah, if they played the Honda every single week of the year, you wouldn't have the same top 10. It would be different, each week, and there might be some consistency, but overall it'd be different. And so a lot of people feel like, okay, my pool and my core missed, this week, and so you got to change up your whole strategy. Well, no, it's your core could have been great, and the rationale behind it could have been awesome. It just wasn't one of those weeks for maybe all the variables at play and the randomness, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I do it. But you asked if there's any other 6K guys. There's only one, and you got to stomach it to play it, and that's Cameron Champ. Hasn't played here before, not in great course history, but again has the distance factor, has the tee time factor. But what he really does well is hit his long irons, pretty accurate. And so yeah, maybe he sneaks in, maybe he peaks. That's another guy. But anybody else in the 6K range you like?
Um, could I interest you with another Cameron that hits it really long?
Sure.
Cam Davis, maybe Cam Davis.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I actually didn't have him in my pool, but I probably won't have a whole lot of him. But he's very, again, shaky off the tee too. I'm worried with all the water as well, but I've really been going with the distance narrative this week. I have a lot of ball strikers in my pool right now, so I got to bring him up, I guess. But I'm really not going too
Yeah.
deep in the 6K range. I like
Yeah.
Pendrith and Svensson quite a bit. Otherwise, I'm loading up pretty heavy on those 7K guys, at least for value. So
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat. And I wanted to get the Cam too, but I looked at his current form and it scared me away. But I feel like he should play well here. So
yeah, Yeah, his current form's
Well,
shaky.
yeah, it's kind of scary, but he can turn it. It's golf. He can turn it around by now. Well, Hunter, anything else you want to share about the tournament at all before we put this to bed and get ready for tomorrow?
Not too much. Like I said, we're still in the Florida swing. Looking forward to the Players next weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you have any thoughts on that? I guess a little mini preview, or looking forward to
I'll just
that.
say going to hammer Brooks. I love the way Brooks is playing right now, and his results hasn't really shown it. I think you need a good kind of like left to right ball flight at the Players, TPC,
Yeah.
Sawgrass. So that's Brooks. I really like Brooks next week, and so that's all I'm going to say. What about you?
I guess I don't have any too early leans too much. I was gonna bring up Scotty Scheffler earlier. I hope he's like 20% owned this weekend, misses the cut, like a couple shots off the number because I
Yeah.
love Scheffler, of course, at another TPC course, and he's been playing well.
Mm-hmm.
Just one miscut wouldn't hurt too much. So
Yeah, I like how you're thinking. Well, let's get that going. Well, Hunter, good luck this weekend. Good luck to everybody. Let's cast some winners and let's be in the green. Hunter, thanks again for coming on, man.
yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a long time since we've chatted that first time, and
Yeah.
we've come a long way. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Good luck, everyone.